Welcome back to another episode of PI, aka Parent Involved. I'm your host, Jamie, and thank you guys for tuning in for the 7th episode of Parent Involved. Now, if you guys are new here, so this channel is about staying involved in your children's lives, whether it's balancing out work, balancing out hobbies that you may have for yourself, or just balancing out everyday life, running your household, whether it's managing your household, managing business, just all around how to balance your life and staying involved at the same time in your kids' lives. Now, if you guys don't know already, I do upload every Tuesday, 7 a.m. Pacific time with a new episode. So every week, you guys can catch me with a new episode discussing parenting tips, as well as ideas or conversations around how to stay involved in your kids' lives. Also, you can catch me on other social media platform, Instagram, which is at parentinvolved_pod. Also, I'm on TikTok. And in the near future, I will be posting video podcasts. So if you guys haven't already, you can find me on YouTube as well. So today's episode is about balancing work and family life as a parent. I know in my previous episodes, I've discussed a little bit about the kids' activities that include all the way from a preschool, what activities they do, extracurricular, as well as all the way up to a recent high school graduate, the type of extracurricular activities that I had to invest time in to ensure that they were able to commit to those either sports or hobbies, art classes, swim classes, acting classes. I've had to make sure to manage my time in order to include those activities in my schedule. So today I'm going to be talking more about how I've been able to incorporate work when it comes to making sure I have the time for their extracurricular activities. So the way that I balance my work out. So first thing, I do have a 8 to 5 job working Monday through Friday. So 40 hours a week, a normal, typical, I would say it's a corporate type job, where my schedule is very predictable when it comes to work. Now, I started this job about 10 years ago, so it has become more evolved as far as my role in the company. I have went from, just a customer service type representative all the way up now to a supervisor role. So the type of responsibilities that I has increased, but it's also made it more convenient for me to be able to make sure that I'm able to take off when I need to, to schedule my time around my kids' activities, or if they have any events coming up at school or out of school, I'm able to easily put in the request to be off or get off early in order to attend those events. Now, when it comes to being involved and making sure that you balance out the time that you spend at your jobs, so it's very important that you be present as a parent with your kids when you're off your job. So of course you have to work. Most families are going to have to work. Someone in the house has to work in order to provide. Even if you didn't work, government assistance, that's usually just not enough, especially these days with the government trying to take away Social Security, Medicare benefits. It's definitely unpredictable when we're trying to rely on the government. So most households are going to have, one or two working parents that have to be able to balance. So with myself as the example in this episode, I have found that the first thing I've always made sure is that I keep my family, I'm always present. So that would be number one, being present whenever I'm not at work. I do not, and that's just me personally, I make sure to never take what I have at work with me home. So even though I work from home, it's just a saying, when you leave, when you clock out, you leave everything that has to do with work at work. Now, I have brought up conversations, everyone has to have that outlet. They have to be able to vent at times if there is something going on at work. So I have, brought up something from work. I have talked about things that go on at work, but I've never went home and, thought about, oh, I need to do this. I need to log back in, or I need to finish this. I try to never put myself in that position. And I always try to ensure that once I'm off, then that's the end of my day. So being present really has to do with just being engaged and minimizing distractions when it comes to work. So when it's the weekend, when it's 5 o'clock, then my time is dedicated either to myself personally, where I'm relaxing, I'm doing things that I can't do while I'm at work, or catching up on episodes, anything like that. I mean, you have to think of it both ways. It's not just 100% is dedicated to your kids, but you do have balancing where you do have time for yourself. And then, of course, you split that time with your kids. So the way that a normal day would work for me is, as soon as I get off, I'll make sure that I have that, that time right after work where I'm relaxing, whether I try to catch an episode or I'm just looking at the news or just scrolling on my phone, looking at updates or videos. So that's something that I do when I first get off. After that, I do try to cook for my kids, make sure they have dinner after 5. So I do make sure to then focus on, my children, want to make sure they have dinner, make sure that they get to eat, or we get to do homework, depending on if it's school time, making sure their homework is done. But that's something that I try to stay on a type of schedule. So I think a schedule is important when it comes to time management, because of course, if you don't have a schedule, it's easy to get caught up, especially when it comes to being on a phone. On social media, it's very easy to spend hours at a time just scrolling, swiping. It's definitely happened to me plenty of times where I've just gotten real comfortable in the bed or just laying down, and I've been on the phone, and now it's late at night. So definitely it's good to have some type of schedule put in place. I wouldn't say let it be strict, but just know how much time you're going to manage or how much time you're going to allocate to specific things like watching TV, catching up on the series. How many episodes are you going to watch per day? Because it's easy with the streaming services. It's easy to find yourself binging those episodes, especially if it's something that you really like, a show that you really find yourself invested in. It's easy to find yourself binging it, and you just there's no room for nothing else. So time management, balancing out everything, and just being present when it's time to interact with your family, whether it's at the dinner table or it's over, a TV show. If you're going to watch a family show, that's still, your time in with your kids. I mean, you're knocking two birds out with one stone when you're doing that. Another thing is scheduling family activities. So usually on the weekends, trying to make time to at least go out, whether it's just to get out the house to go get food. If you're going to be eating out on the weekend, make time to do that as a family. For this most recent weekend, we just went to the mall. It was hot though, so we definitely didn't stay out long, but just to get out and, walk around, do a couple things in the mall. Usually we do try to do the movie theater at least once or twice a month if something good is out. But if not, the movie theaters are very much expensive these days. And I think they're trying to just get back in the groove of things, especially with the streaming services and the way that COVID had them not making any profit for the last couple years. I have seen that the prices have raised greatly as far as when it comes to, snacks or just the tickets, getting those tickets to see the movies. But that was something that I enjoy, watching movies. Even though we do have a lot of the streaming services, we have Hulu, Netflix, we just canceled Paramount, HBO, but a lot of those streaming services I have. If there's a movie on one of those that I don't have, I would usually try to get it for the month just so we could see that movie or any other shows that might be on there. But sometimes you just want to get out. That's something that we do, try to get out the house, get some fresh air, and maybe walk around the mall. And then, if there's a good movie, we'll catch a movie at the mall. Another way to balance out your family time after work is to learn to prioritize. So prioritizing what truly matters and where your energy is going to be, that's going to be very important. You have to learn to, shut it off when work is over. Then that's the time for you and your family. If you bring that energy from work, because everyone knows, there can be stressful days at work. I think a lot of the times, even though I work from home, I find myself very tired when I'm off. And my daughter, my oldest, used to say, you just work from home. You sit at the desk all day, but it's a mental thing. Even if you're not physical, you're not headed out, you're not in traffic an hour there, hour back. It's still a mental stress on your body that can make you tired. Whenever you do end work for the day, you should find things that help motivate you or help energize you in order for you to be more present with your family. I know I have experienced it a lot where when I would get off from, clocking out, I'm still sitting at the desk at home, but I quickly just transfer my body right to the bed. So that's happened plenty of days. And I do try to minimize that because I know I have a smaller, a younger 4-year-old, and I have a middle schooler, and now I have a high school graduate. So it's important that I interact with them and not just be, secluded at work 8 hours a day and then get home and I'm laying in the bed, not moving, not active, not spending any quality time or having conversations with them after I get off from that 5 to 9 or 5 to 10, whatever time frame that I'm going to be up. So learning to prioritize what I'm going to do after work is very important. And I think everyone should have some type of schedule or some type of time management, how you're going to spend that 5+ hours that you have after you get off work. Share responsibilities is also something that is very important when it comes to trying to balance your time. Once you get off work, 8 hours a day, really it's usually 9. You get an hour for lunch, but for lunch, what are you really doing? So it's most of the time you're not even eating at lunch, especially if you work from home. You've probably been munching all day or you eat when you're hungry. So when it comes to the time you're sitting at your desk, it can easily be that whole 9 hours, give or take, whenever you stepped away to eat something. So it's important to make sure that when you are working at home, that you balance out the responsibilities amongst your family or who resides in the house with you. So of course, with my 4-year-old, she doesn't have a lot of responsibilities, but when it comes to, the trash, my recent high school graduate, she used to take the trash out, but now that responsibility is falling more on my elementary. Well, he'll be in 5th grade, but is now falling on him to do that more consistently. So for my recent high school graduate, for her to help out, maybe straightening up, having the dishes washed, even maybe cook a meal or so would help out a lot as far as where I can put my remaining time when I'm off work, where I can focus that time towards. So if I'm not in the kitchen cooking for an hour or so, if she already prepped a meal, because, it is summertime, or even when she got out of school around 2, 3 o'clock, if she had a meal prepped, then at 5, it would be more of that time allocated to all of us spending together versus me in the kitchen and then them doing their separate things. Just making sure to share responsibilities and divide the chores. That helps a lot when it comes to having more time to spend with each other. Another thing would be realistic. So expectations that you have for work and family is you don't want to be overwhelmed. It really depends on the type of job you have, of course. If you do find yourself, you could be your body could just be physically tired, even mentally. Like I said, with me, it's more of a mental thing. When I get off work, I'm really just exhausted. It does take a toll on me some of the days. So a lot of the times when you think, okay, when I get off work, I'm going to go to the store, I want to go grocery shopping. You have to be able to think realistically how you feel as far as internally, mentally, physically. You don't want to push yourself. So that's something that's very important. You don't want to overdo it because stress, everyone knows stress can have a bad effect on your body. It can have a bad effect on your mood, the way that you react to things. Maybe some things aren't as serious as you took it because you're just you're exhausted and you can't deal with anything else outside of the norm, the quietness. You just can't deal with anything else. And that's not a good thing, especially when you have a child. Just one child, but considering I have 3, ranging all the way down from, a hyperactive 4-year-old all the way up to a child that is growing into adulthood. They're still learning, but at the same time, they think they know everything. So it's very you have to be able to handle those things that may not be of the norm that day that come your way. If you push yourself to the limit, okay, running errands every day, if you don't have a schedule, like today is the day where I'm going to cook, and then tomorrow we would eat leftovers, or today I'm not cooking. Today is going to be one of those maybe frozen food sandwich noodles type of day. So you just have to be able to be realistic about how your days are going to be when you try to plan or try to time management, because it's easy to think, especially outside looking in, when some people look in, oh, I cook for we don't eat that processed food, or don't eat out. I don't buy fast food. So there are some people, I don't buy fast food. I always cook. I always make a meal for my kids for dinner. We always have dinner every night together at a table. So if that doesn't work for you, it just doesn't work for you. I don't think there's a set standard for any person, any one individual. You have to be realistic, and you have to do what's going to be beneficial and what's going to be healthy for you. So if you only, can do 1 or 2 days out the week, you can cook 1 or 2 days, then you can only cook 1 or 2 days. As long as no one's starving, there's nothing wrong with making sure they have, they eat something, as far as they have their protein, they have their vegetables, they have the options to eat from what's in the house. So definitely being realistic is going to be an important thing, and you have to make sure that you do what's right for you in the long run. Another thing that I know I have mentioned when it comes to, work related, especially when it comes to managing work and parent life. In a recent episode, I mentioned the work from home, how it's very beneficial to work from home when you have children. It's just all around you. You're going to have more time with your child. So when I work from home, I'm not in traffic 1 hour. The company that I work for, the actual location where it's located, the actual building where it's located, is about an hour plus in traffic. So like I said in a previous episode, I have been working remotely for this company for about 8 of the 10 years. I was on the pilot program when they started the work from home. So I've been working ever since from home, where I've been able to save gas. I've been able to save time, which is the most important thing to me when it comes to working from home, saving time. I just remember every morning, it was very difficult, especially when you have those school-age children and you're the only one that's taking them to school, from school, or you're the sole person that's going to be picking them up and just, making sure they're home safe. Of course, like I said before, is 8 to 5. Schools normally start around 8:30. Elementary schools. I think high schools, of course, they start a little bit earlier. And then what that means is when they start earlier, they get out earlier. But when it comes to elementary school, is very difficult. If you don't work from home, you end up needing that before care. So when you look at all the cons that goes into working in an office, it's just best to take advantage if you are given the opportunity to work from home. You're able to eliminate the gas that it takes to drive there and back from your job. You eliminate the amount of money that you would have to pay in order to have that before and after school care. Because if the school starts at 8:30 and you have to be at work at 8, well, who's going to make sure they're at school? That's where that before school care comes in. And you drop them off, and then they would, take them by bus, depending on how far it is, to the school to make sure they're there on time. And then the same thing goes with picking them up. They would pick them up to ensure that right after school, they have service where they can be watched and make sure no harm comes to them until you get off to come pick them up. There's so many things out there where the work from home is just so beneficial, especially for parents. And a lot of companies, I feel that they should incorporate it more, but there are people, of course, that take advantage of it. And it just doesn't work out that way. Of course, businesses have to look out for themselves, or they wouldn't, have the business that they have. And a lot of people would be out of work. So they have to incorporate measures to make sure that no one is taking advantage of the system. But aside from that, if you're given the opportunity, that is going to help manage your parent work life the best. So if you can consider, if you have to get into the workforce or get back into the workforce after you just had a baby, of course, the 6 weeks, 8 weeks, depending on when you decide after you have a child, if you wanted to go back to work, looking into a remote job is going to be highly beneficial for you and your child. You're going to be there with them instead of in traffic, and they're not going to have to spend majority of their time being watched by either the school or the before and after care. And then the last thing that I wanted to cover is considering part-time or flexible work options. This is something that's really not on the plate for me as far as an outside job. Now, I have done it before. I was in a tight situation at one point, and even if I was in the future, I would definitely consider it again if I had to. But getting a part-time job, whether it's delivering or whether it's, they do have some out there like the data entry part-time jobs, or social media, going on a post, doing research, trying on clothes. I've seen a lot of different things out there, and most of them are pretty difficult because there's just not enough positions for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that probably want those. So I just have found that if you needed the extra part-time, just pick one that you would be able to allocate time to your children as well. So if you're working, 8 hours, and then you have to get that second job, part-time, or hopefully it's not another full-time, but some situations, just one job is not going to cut it. So I definitely understand when I look at the jobs, because I work for a payroll company. So when I look at companies that are still paying close to minimum wage, it's very saddening to see, because I don't think there's nowhere in the US that you can make a living. You can live on your own. You can feed your kids on your own on minimum wage. So I can definitely understand why a person would have to have a part-time or two and then a full-time job. So definitely, if you do have to get a part-time job, when you're trying to make sure you're balancing out work and time with your children, you just want to make sure that part-time job is very understanding. The best part-time jobs are the ones that you can pick the time for yourself. I know when I first started working, I worked at a telecommunications place, and they did surveys. So, I was a 16-year-old doing call center type work, but it was a job that I could actually pick my schedule. So I was able to let them know ahead of time, I can work 3 hours this day, 2 hours this day. So it was very helpful, especially for a teen. But if you had to choose a part-time to incorporate because you needed that extra money to pay, to just make ends meet, then definitely I would find something that is going to be where you can either do it at home or you can choose your hours. So even with delivery, I was able to, go out on the road, and I can pick, how long am I going to be out here working away from my children? And that's going to be very important when it comes to trying to balance out work and parent life. So I hope that I gave some good tips for you guys to incorporate or take into consideration when you're attempting to balance out that work parent life. I definitely understand the struggle, and it's just very challenging to be a parent that has to make sure that it's not just all about putting a roof over your kid's head or putting food on the table. It is more to it. And that's why, this is the podcast for being involved. There's definitely so much more to just making the money for them to survive. That is a very high necessity. Is number one, we have to make sure that they are able to grow up healthy and strong. But at the same time, we have to go an extra mile as parents to be sure, we nourish everything that comes with the child in helping them grow into a healthy and knowledgeable and a healthy human being. So I hope that I helped you guys today. And if you guys have any questions or any comments, definitely reach out to me on Instagram at parentinvolve_pod. I'll continue to upload episodes weekly and hope that you guys find the episodes that have value in the information. Thank you guys for listening and have a great day.